Hello and welcome, one and all. Wednesday evening, afternoon, Wednesday morning, wherever you are around the world, time for another inspiring and enlightening Light 'em Up Lounge live show. And tonight, we have one of the most elegant, well experienced gentlemen of the cigar industry, and one of the most applauded and acclaimed cigar merchants here with us, Mitchell Orchant, Managing Director of Cigars Limited, CCO of the newly found Dominique London, as well as the UK Silver Chaveta Award winner for his outstanding contribution to the UK cigar scene, and not just the UK scene, but the global cigar scene. Mr. Orchant, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you to the show. And thank you so much for joining us here at Light 'em Up today.
Thanks very much for the invitation. When you were saying all those nice things, I was looking around like, who are you talking about? But thanks for that.
And hopefully I got all of them right, but we'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss them and go through them and all your wonderful experiences in the cigar world. But first of all, I would love to ask you, you're an avid connoisseur of the finer things in life in general, exceptional products, some of which we see in your backdrop. Um, so whether it's food, beverage, cars, cigars, what is it though that captured your attention of the humble leaf in the first place?
Oh, well, there's an easy answer to that. I come from a long line of cigar smokers, and my father, who is my greatest influence, has always been a cigar smoker, and so are both of my grandfathers, my great uncles. So I grew up with it around me. So, literally from a kid, when the guys in the family were having meetings and discussing business, there would always be cigars around and a humidor brought out at the end of dinner, and cognac or whiskey would accompany the cigars. It was just the norm back in those days. So I grew up with it around me all my life. So it was a kind of a natural thing. And in fact, I think we were counting the generations of cigar smokers, because my nephew, who's sort of a generation younger than me, my nephew Gabriel, is now also a cigar smoker. So I think we're about 5 generations in Havana cigar smokers now in the Orchant family, which is kind of amusing.
So what was it though that kept you going with it once you discovered the whole lifestyle, the product itself? What was it that truly made you come back for more? And when did you discover this is your path for life and the profession, the path that you want to follow?
I should probably be embarrassed to say I'm a bit of a cigar nerd, and I always was. And I was a bit different as a teenager because, I wasn't interested in sports or anything remotely like that sort of mainstream sporty type stuff. But I was very interested in cigars and visiting cigar shops and reading books about cigars, just because it captivated my interest. I don't know why. Maybe it was something that I saw in my family, that the guys would be smoking big cigars and it would exude affluence. It would look impressive to me as a teenager. I don't know, but I was very much a cigar nerd. So I decided early on to just learn as much as I possibly could. Whenever I traveled, I'd visit cigar stores, I'd speak to cigar store owners. Some I learnt from, some I learnt nothing from, some were sort of plain embarrassing. And, it sort of went on from there till the stage where I was in the hotel business with my father for some years. And I said to him, I really want to do something in mail order with cigars. And this was, oh my God, probably trying to think when this would be. This would be early 90s. And he said, well, do it as a sideline, you've got plenty of time. We weren't working too hard in those days. And I remember writing to Dunhill, I think Hunters and Samuels. And of course, 2 out of 3 don't exist anymore. And I've actually got their letters giving me their original price lists. I think they're from 1991, 92 or thereabouts. So I had the idea then, but I couldn't put it together. Not sure why, it's too many years have gone by. But I had the idea, and it's a shame I didn't go into it then, because I would have been really very, very early on into the business. And thereafter, I just continued as a hobby. which I enjoyed very much. And then in 1993, I think I opened the first website in the UK selling cigars. It was very, very early on. And I was very much part of the old Usenet chat room scene and all the cigar forums back in those days, the ASC. Um, what were the other ones? I can't even remember their names. That was so long ago. Oh my gosh, that's really funny. Anyway, so it's part of the whole scene, and I really was enjoying doing it on a part-time basis because I was in a different business at the time. And then in 1997, my business circumstances changed for the worse, and I had to reinvent myself and do something else. So I thought, well, I only know about a couple of things. I know a bit about the property business. I know a little bit about the petroleum business because they were my two previous business interests. Then I thought I know a lot about cigars. And I'd already been selling cigars by mail order and in my convenience stores for about 4 years, something like that, 5 years. And I thought, you know, I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to do this full time and really develop it. So took a little holiday, cleared my mind, and dreamt up C.Gars Ltd, which had sort of morphed out of its predecessor, which was called Mitchell's Cigar Company. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history.
And quite an astonishing history, we have to say. So you were involved in the cigar industry on many different levels, experienced the cigar world from various different perspectives and angles. Where do you ultimately see yourself in that delicate ecosystem? And would you say that knowing the industry from all various angles is ultimately the key to success?
I think the key to success, well, there's a few keys. The main key is luck and timing, which is about the same. And I think thereafter, it's probably another couple of factors. One is working about 26 hours a day, 8 days a week, which frankly, I mean, happily I no longer do, but I certainly did do up until about 3 years ago when I started to ease back a little bit. And then I think you need passion and product knowledge. I think one without the other doesn't work to be successful in the cigar industry. It's probably the same in most industries. My partner Ron would say it's the same in the whiskey industry. You know, if you've got the passion but no knowledge, well, that's a waste of time. Just end up a drunk in the whiskey industry. And in the cigar industry, if you've got the knowledge but you don't really have the passion to put across what you're experiencing and help people to understand what they should be experiencing, then that won't work. So it's a lot of key factors that I suppose make one successful in the business or make one valuable or validated in the cigar business. Does that answer the question?
Most definitely. And I'm curious though, since you also work with other luxury products, spirits in particular, mentioned, how do you think that has influenced the way you think about the cigar world and the way you do business in the industry? So all the outside inspiration ultimately then shining through to your work in the cigar world.
Well, now, as you mentioned, I do like the finer things in life. I'm a foodie. I very much enjoy single malt whiskies. I enjoy rums. I like creating harmonies of flavors in terms of taste pairings, food, drinks, cigars. For me, it's all go-togethers and it's all about the big experience. How can you make a cigar that's a lovely experience into an evening of the finest food, whatever that may be for you? You know, it might be a McDonald's to somebody and it might be a filet steak to somebody else. It's very personal, but how can you make it into a bigger tasting experience? And that's an ever going quest, isn't it? It's a never-ending quest to find different harmonies of flavors. Are you trying to find a product that challenges the cigar in its flavor or that complements it? That's a debate that goes on and on as well, which is very interesting. There may not be a right or wrong answer. So yeah, that's really what I try to do most of the time. And if I can bring those experiences to my friends and clients that I spend a lot of time with, then I think it's beneficial to everybody, and everybody enjoys the experience that I'm having and the experience that I've had.
I'm truly glad that you bring up the word experience, because for me, coming from the wine, spirits, and hospitality side, and now working as an experience designer, um, that's the word that truly transformed and shaped my life. However, I sometimes feel like it has become a catchphrase that we use on a daily basis, but ever so often it's not lived and breathed. It's probably a marketing concept that is thrown around an awful lot, where I think it has to be in the company's DNA nowadays, in every brand's DNA, and even every person. Um, how does it translate into your daily work? How do you create and stage those experiences that are memorable and meaningful and mesmerizing?
Every day of my life is an experience, my friend. And I really mean that. Every day is fantastic because I wake up in the morning and my wife brings me my espresso and I light up a small cigar, and that starts my day off, and that's how I continue my day. And I spend a lot of time these days with clients. I always have done, not so much in the evenings anymore because I now have my St James's outpost where I love to hold court. That's in the centre of London, which is a lovely place to hang out and herf. And so, I'm experiencing all the time discussions, conversations with friends, with clients over a good cigar, over a fine single malt whiskey, and that's what my working week is all about.
So let's talk a little bit about the retail side, and keeping in mind everything that we just spoke about in regards to experience. The retail world in general is in constant movement and undergoing severe changes now. And the cigar retail world in particular has experienced that most definitely. What were some of the most disruptive evolutions that you have seen over the span of your career, over all those years, particularly within the cigar industry and the retail side?
Well, Reinhardt, I am the original market disruptor in the UK. I mean, that's exactly what I did. When I went into the business full time in 1997, the business was a pure e-commerce company, an internet company selling cigars, a cigar specialist on the internet, the first one on the internet. So that in itself disrupted the market. But by the year 2000, the retailers in the UK, most of whom aren't in existence anymore, they thought I'm actually harming their business, and they were certainly correct. I was harming their business. I was harming their business because I was much better than them. I had more knowledge, more passion, more business experience on multi levels, better customer service, better product or better condition of product, better marketing. I could go on, and I certainly was hurting their business. So by about the year 2000, they realized that, and they thought that they could then just open a website and get the business back. But it didn't really work like that because I had 3 years development, and that was like light years ahead already. There was no way anybody could catch up with me at that stage. So what I did was I followed one of my business principles, which is from my hero Sam Walton, who has the business theory swim against the tide, which means whatever your competitors are doing, do exactly the opposite. So as my competitors went into websites, I started to open retail shops. So now the game was changing and I was disrupting the market again. And over the last, I don't know how many years, 20 years, we've opened, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 cigar and whiskey shops. And even to this day, we've got about 18 shops in the group. So that was how my personal evolution went from internet to retail. I could tell you more about that. The fact that, in fact, the competitors never caught up because they didn't have dedicated internet and e-commerce logistical abilities that we did. Our business wasn't a shop doing a bit of mail order. We had a warehouse dedicated to doing professional mail order. Then we opened or took over stores that we would professionally run as a retail store. So everything was very specialized and very professionally planned, thought out and executed. In terms of the evolution in general that I've seen over the quarter of a century, I've been full-time in the cigar business in the UK. I think when I started, the cigar shops, not all of them, but most of them were very unimpressive, were very poor in terms of how they looked after their cigars. I think they were poor in terms of customer service. I used to joke back then, when I was a little bit more aggressive than I am now, that their staff looked like tramps off the street, but it was true. And in general, I think their offering was very poor and they were ripping off the consumer. So what I did was I did everything the opposite from day one. I made my staff dress very smartly in black and whites or suits, and we would pay for all their uniforms. They'd wear beautiful gold badges that they'd be proud to wear with the company name of their name. We would train them. We would send them to Hunter's Cigar School, to Davidoff training, to anybody in the industry that would give a bit of training. I would then do my own cigar school for them. So they would gain product knowledge and gain an understanding of how to actually sell a product and talk about the product with some authority. They didn't have to be experts, but they had to be specialists. They had to have a clue about what they were doing. And then I would build beautiful cigar stores, as beautiful as we could afford to do, each one better than the previous model. Nothing looking the same as the previous one, different identity in terms of the design, specific for the location. It might have been something English and old-fashioned and big armchairs, leather sofas and so on, or it might have suited a location to be very modern. It depended. We gave thought to everything we did on a micro level, not on a macro level. And we gave a combination, and still do, of excellent customer service. We don't always get it right, but we'll always make it right if we make a mistake. A phenomenal product range where every product should be clean and perfect and clearly priced, and competitive pricing, and a guarantee that nobody will ever beat our price in the UK. That doesn't mean we've got the lowest prices. We probably don't. But it's very difficult to manage 10,000 product SKUs 24 hours a day, but we'll always price match if we get it wrong. So the evolution was from a fairly lousy lot of cigar stores in the UK, some good ones though, I'm not saying all of them were bad, into our stores where we wanted to do things at a 5-star level within the confines of my finances as the business grew, but giving the customer a real experience of walking in, getting a smile from the customer service advisor, getting a bit of advice, not too much to bore them, because that's easy to do with customers as well. Customers don't want to be spoken to for an hour. They actually want to make a purchase decision. We also wanted to give a facility for sampling. So every store of ours has some sampling area. Might just be a few seats, might be a great big lounge. We wanted to give the all-round encompassing experience. And that's, I think, what we managed to achieve. And well, going by our retail figures, we've definitely achieved it, because I think most businesses are probably not doing that great, not in the cigar industry, but in general, in retail. It's obviously very tough at the moment for a lot of industries, but in the cigar industry, you know, it's a niche boutique business, and people come to us because it's a destination point. It's not a spontaneous purchase. You don't walk past a cigar store and think, oh, I must have a cigar. You go there because you know there's a fabulous cigar store there, and you should get some good advice and some good choice and some great product at a price that is sensible. So that's how I see it.
That's some wonderful insights that you just shared with us. I'm curious though, would you say that nowadays it's probably more challenging for new players to enter the industry? As in, do you think the entry hurdle has become higher, either from a financial standpoint, product availability, and also maybe regulatory restrictions and issues on a political level?
I think it's a very good question. And actually, Ray asked it the same question, I believe, when he interviewed me a few weeks ago. And I'll give you my overview. And this doesn't apply for other countries because I only understand the UK market. nobody should ever get into the UK cigar industry unless they have a lot of money. Now, if they have a lot of money, they should get into the UK cigar industry because it's a fabulous lifestyle. But that's what it is. It's a lifestyle. There is very, very little money to make as a single site operator in the UK because the margins are not big. This isn't shoes or fashion where there's hundreds of percents of margin. The expenses are enormous: rent, rates, staff costs, pensions. I could go on and on, electricity. And the entry cost is huge. If you take just inventory cost alone, my smallest shop has £150,000 at net trade cost of goods. So that's £150,000 before you've opened a door and sold a single cigar. Now try and fit out a cigar store. Well, we spend about something like £250,000 on average for a fit out. Let's say you only do it for 50,000, do something basic. You still can't guarantee that when you open your door and put up your website, you will sell one single cigar because it's a highly competitive business where there are a few very established retailers and e-tailers, or both, who essentially dominate the UK market. So if you've got the money and the time to do it and you're not doing it for a profit motivation, you will make potentially a basic living. However, for a fraction of that price, you can get a Subway franchise, work hard, and actually make a good living from day one. So that is really the honest and genuine, outlook. I'd never do it. If I was starting again now, I'd be cutting sandwiches at Subway. I would never do a single site operation.
I appreciate your honesty and those insights. And one thing that you brought up earlier, obviously the balance between the analog and digital world and the ongoing debate in the cigar industry as to whether the internet is actually taking over the family-owned traditional store in your neighborhood. You were one of the early adopters, paving the way for so many others. In retrospect, how do you think about that now? And where do you see that balance between the online and the analog world?
Well, I think retail is very important because although the bulk of our business has always been and continues to be online, I think retail is extremely important for the cigar consumer to have the opportunity to go around the country to our stores or our contemporary stores and actually see, feel, well, not feel these days because of COVID. We don't actually like people pressing bands and putting their germs all over stuff, but at least see the product and then purchase one to sample, sit in a lovely, comfortable sampling lounge or outdoor on a terrace and be able to smoke, enjoy the cigar, and then make a decision if he wants to try something else or purchase that cigar. So I think retail is still has a very, very important place in the industry. I'm a big believer in bricks and clicks. I think it goes together better than either business separately. However, I should add to that, why I believe it goes together so perfectly is the limitations of retail. So if I take my biggest store, it probably has about 2,000 SKUs roughly. But online, I've got 10,000 SKUs. The economics don't stack up to have any premises in the UK big enough to hold 10,000 SKUs. If we were in America, you've got the great people, like Cigars or Cigars International. They're amazing. You walk into these huge warehouses, retail warehouses. They're so impressive. They've got everything. It's a different market there. It's a different property market. It's different players. You just couldn't do it in the UK. Believe me, we've looked at doing it, but it doesn't stack up. So I think the two businesses really work very well together because you can give your customers access to that massive range that we carry. And it's not unusual to see our clients sitting in our lounges and they've bought a cigar or two, they're having a whiskey, they're reading a magazine, and then they put down the magazine and pick up their iPad and they're surfing around our website and placing a massive order, and they're collecting at mail order prices in our stores. And I think that's really cool.
do you think that in general the industry is sometimes romanticizing the traditional brick and mortar?
If it is, I think it's probably correct to, because I think there were some greats. I think there still are some greats. I know my father and my grandfather used to go to J.J. Fox and Davidoff, and my father tells me how great they were in those days. And certainly Davidoff still is one of the greatest cigar merchants in the world. I'm talking about Davidoff of London, the Sahakians. So no, there's if it's still seen as very romantic in the cigar business, I think it's absolutely correct. And our first store was in Liverpool, and that's Termo's Tobacconists, and that was established in 1817. And I'm actually very proud that that business has run continuously since 1817, and obviously now under my stewardship.
Excellent point. Brian, over to you in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Good morning still, huh? Well, good morning here. Good evening there. I just wanted, I have a quick question. I just wanted to compliment the phrase brick and click. That's great. I like that. I've never heard that before. It rings true for me because I order, ever since we've got the Armageddon happening, I've been ordering everything in the mail, and I order cigars from a place in Philadelphia, B&B International Cigars, and I never would have a reason to go to Philadelphia, but now I feel like ordering online, seeing photos of the shop would make me want to go there. So it's a little bit of both, brick and click. So my question was about, you guys were talking earlier about sampling lounges. And I think that's not a phrase we use here, but I know there are a lot of cigar lounges. And I'm wondering about your opinion on paid club memberships. There was this place in Santa Monica I used to go, and it was like $1,000 a year, as far as I could tell, to just use the lounge to enter. Maybe you got like a locker, and so I don't go there anymore. But I'm wondering if you feel like there's any benefit to that from anyone's point of view. The shop, I guess, or if you feel like it's sort of a scam, or what's been your experience?
I think it's a massive benefit. Was it $1,000? I'd pay that in a heartbeat if it was a local cigar store and lounge, because in the UK, we don't have cigar clubs. They are illegal. We don't have cigar lounges as such. We have cigar sampling lounges because by law, we have a sampling exemption. That means the customer can come in, select a cigar, purchase it, sit comfortably, have a drink, read a magazine, enjoy that cigar, and then make a decision whether he wishes to purchase a box or another cigar or walk out of the store. It's a sampling exemption. You're very lucky, I believe, in most states in the USA, you can still have actual cigar lounges where you can sit all day or all night and smoke cigars. We don't have that in the UK. The only places you can sit and smoke all day and all night are on outside terraces, which with our weather doesn't really work too well 6 months a year.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's great. That's really informative. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a crazy EU law, or a bunch of them, called TPD2, Tobacco Products Directive, and unfortunately it banned smoking. Was it in 2006, I think, or 2007? Can't even remember now. And before that, we'd smoke everywhere. We'd go out for dinner and light up a cigar after dinner. But since the ban, there are no cigar lounges, cigar clubs. It cannot legally exist. It's just a sampling exemption in cigar stores, which is extremely valuable to us, and our clients are extremely grateful for that facility to be able to do that. When I go to the States, when I go to Los Angeles and New York, I'm spoiled because there are actual cigar lounges here, there, and everywhere if you know where to go. And it's just terrific that you can sit around and not worry about having to smoke up and get out.
Well, damn, now I feel lucky. Thank you. I feel very privileged. It's the only one thing that's better here.
There you go.
Another question from our dear friend Ian.
Hi, Mitchell, and just wanted to comment. I was actually in the new Ryder Street store a couple of weeks ago, and it's a beautiful store. Really love it. And I didn't know it was there. I was actually at JJ Fox having a cigar in the morning, and then I walked past it on my way to get some lunch and called in. And Dov did me proud. I had a very nice Don Carlos with him, and he gave me a bit of whiskey, and it's a really lovely store. So well done. You also allow people to charge their phones, which certain other people didn't, which was also great. So that's good. I'm interested in your comments now because I had a pipe dream when I retire of opening a cigar shop, and I think probably I won't now because it'll be a lot of expense and not much money. So maybe I'll just have to go and frequent other cigar shops. Perhaps a question for you. Are there any sort of people you'd like to deal with that you're not? I notice very few people in the UK, if anybody, has cigars from Steve Saka, and I absolutely love his cigars. I think the Sobremesa is one of the best cigars in the world, but no one in the UK seems to sell it. Are you interested in that, or any others that you don't stock that you'd like to?
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for visiting the store, first of all. I'm glad you had a nice experience there. Sorry about putting off your hopes of entering our crazy business with your retirement money, but I've probably saved you a few bob. In answer to your question, I know Steve very well. I've actually known him since 1996. No, earlier, since about 1994, actually. He's a lovely, lovely guy, and we've had some good laughs together over the years. Yeah, I'd be interested in selling quite a few different brands. However, I'll tell you the problem. Number one, it's not that easy to import brands. Number two, you have to register them, which is a whole long procedure, and it costs a few quid as well. And then you have to look at the overall picture. It's very easy, and I don't want to sound brutal or rude, but let me be blunt. It's very easy to say, he's making a great cigar, he's making a great cigar. You should really get that in. My answer would be, have you looked at how huge my range is? Have you tried everything in my range?
No.
Well, okay. And let me tell you, I've picked all of those ranges because they are equally as good, or loads of them are equally as good as Saka or a million other brands we could think of. And we have to do a program of introducing brands one at a time, very slowly, very carefully, chop out one brand, put in another brand. Otherwise it becomes never ending. And what you do as a businessman in that situation is you are fragmenting sales, whereas what one should be doing in terms of selling and inventory control is doing incremental sales. So it's a slow process. It's not a process of you can just bring something in, bang, and add it, because you end up selling about 1,000 sticks to a few enthusiasts like your good self, and that's it. But it's not cost effective to bring in 1,000 sticks. When we launch a brand, we do a test launch with 50,000 sticks. Otherwise, we don't get the economies of scale of importation because of the transportation charges, the clearance charges, and so on and so forth. So yes, I'd love to do Steve Cigars. Maybe I'll even give him a shout and tell him, but the UK market also isn't terribly interesting to a lot of these cigar manufacturers, because if I understand correctly from a friend of mine who's a big importer in the UK, a brand is considered successful if it's doing sales of 5,000 sticks in its first year. For our business, we would consider that a rank failure. And I give you an example. We launched a budget Nicaraguan brand called Michelero 3 months ago. And our first test import was 50,000 sticks, which we thought would last us about a half a year. We sold the whole lot in 1 month. So we pick brands that hit, I won't say the mass market, if you like, but our market, because we know what our market is. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It's sort of. I'm smoking a Regis, which is I'm enjoying. Though I had a Sobremesa on Sunday afternoon, and it was just sublime.
Yeah.
In the States, so about $13, $14. That's a little bit more expensive than probably the Regis is in the States, but it's not silly money. And the last time I was in one of your competitors, I had a RAS, which was 24 quid. which was okay, but it was just an expensive cigar for what it was. And I think, you know, I've been a big advocate for Nicaraguan cigars. I've been to the festival several times. I tell all my friends to try them, and people in the UK are now, I think, coming round to them. I mean, as you know, a lot of people in the UK just go for Cubans and won't smoke anything else. But once they try some good New World cigars, they realize that actually there's another world out there, and it's worth experimenting. And very often they're less expensive than the Cubans. You know, I think Cohiba is just ridiculously priced at the moment, and you know, 1 in 3 is going to be have some problems with it. So, you know, I'm, you know, happy to stick to New World cigars. Interested to hear about the Micheleros. I've not heard of them. Is that one that you did for yourself? You know, with your, yeah. Okay. Good. Well, you know, have a word with Steve, because I think once people in the UK get to try his cigars, they'll love them.
Just for you, Ian, I will speak to Steve.
Thank you.
And I do agree with you about Nicaraguans, but I agree with you about New World cigars in general. But, you know, I was the early adopter of the whole New World cigar thing in the UK. Everyone was like, no, they'll never sell in the UK. It's just a Cuban cigar market. And it certainly was. I mean, when I started, we, you know, in the early 90s, we were 99.9% Cuban cigars. But to me, it was pretty obvious. You know, if you drink 7-Up one day a week or every day a week, you might fancy a Diet Coke one day a week. So I thought there's got to be a market there for people to actually try out different stuff. And I thought, well, if I could just grab the interest of 10% of customers, then I'm going to increment my overall market. And I was absolutely bloody right, because I was carrying ranges that people wouldn't carry. I was asking people to try. I was the first person to mix up Cuban cigars with New World cigars in sampler packs. And I did it in all funny ways we could do in those days, that, you know, I would put in the New World cigars at cost and just make my margin on the Cubans just to get people to try the New World cigars. You know, I would do all funny little tricks like that. And, you know, it really did work, because the New World thing has taken off to such a degree. It's fantastic, and I'm very happy for the importers that back them, and I back those importers in terms of I gave them the business, or I would underwrite their orders and say, if it doesn't work, I'll just take all your stock. So, you know, we backed it, they backed it, and I'm very happy for the brands and the brand owners, because I think they make their product with so much care and dedication and skill that they, you know, 99 times out of 100 really get a phenomenal result. So I'm a huge fan of New World cigars, even though I'm a Havana cigar smoker, because that's the cigar that suits my palate. I certainly do enjoy a lot of New World cigars.
Yeah, I mean, I spend my winters on Boisdale's Terrace with a blanket around me, so I do suffer there. But you know, 4 or 5 years ago, Ranald wasn't interested in Nicaraguan cigars very much, and I told him about the festival, and then all of a sudden he's gone out there and he's interested, and you know, he's got a few more now, not very many, but he's got a few, and people are trying them, and I think, you know, I think they're enjoying them. I think once people try them, they really enjoy them, and they're usually better value than Cubans, in my opinion.
Yeah, or even if you go for a top-end brand like Davidoff, you know, they're on a par with Cubans, even if they're a bit more expensive. But, you know, I got Boisdale, I got Ranald to take Davidoff and some other New World brands into Boisdale. And I think he's probably done very well out of it, because I know the brand owners are very happy about that, or the importers are very happy about that. Which Boisdale did you go to? Belgravia?
I go to Belgravia. I go to Canary Wharf. Well, I've been to Belgravia a few weeks ago. My office is sort of, I can get to Belgravia, I can get to Canary Wharf, I can get to Mayfair, you know, within 25 minutes. So, you know, of an evening, that's very easy. And, you know, yeah, they're nice terraces when it's not raining, not windy.
I love Boisdale. I was there last week for lunch. Absolutely love it. We did so many parties with them over the years. It's unbelievable. We did the opening party at Canary Wharf.
Right. Yeah.
That was us.
Anyway, thanks so much, Mitchell, and keep up the good work. And Ryder Street's a superb store. Anyone here, go to Ryder Street. It's just a lovely, lovely, lovely store.
Thank you, Ian.
So piggybacking on and using what Ian just mentioned as a segue to the next question, Mr. Orchant, how have you what do you think about changes in consumer behavior in general and people's expectations around cigars, various brands, but also the retail side? How has that changed over all those years that you have been in business?
Well, the main change is from Cubans to New World. And it's an interesting change because um, the market really now is probably at around 65% Cuban, 35% New World. And I think it's probably going to go 60-40 in the next year. And I'd probably predict within 3 years in the UK, it should go around 50-50. However, you have to understand that the New World sales are not at the expense of Cuban cigar sales. It's just that the market is growing in the UK and the market is evolving because you've got a younger generation coming through that are not my older generation, my dad's generation, that are pure Havana cigar smokers. So market is growing and it's shifting towards New World. That's really the main change in consumer patterns. Also, actually, the other big change is when I started out in the business, a cigar smoker would typically say, my cigar is a Monte Cristo #2 or #4. And if you'd suggest to him, hey, try an Upman #2, he'd be like, no way, my cigar is a Monte Cristo #2. That really doesn't exist anymore. People are trying new cigars, different cigars, whether they're Cuban or New World, all the time. So that's a huge, huge shift. A lot of people have favorites, you know, it might be they smoke White Churchills all the time, but that's their regular. But even those customers will still put in an order for their usual cigar, add a few different things every time. So that's a huge shift over a period of 25 years, which I never quite predicted. I never thought I would see that. And then there's also the thing that we've become like America now, that the cigar consumer, like Ian to a degree, I suppose, is always waiting for the next big thing. He's heard about something in America, he's managed to get some cigars somehow or other, you know, those cigars, and they're not in the UK, and everybody's waiting, when's that next new cigar coming out? And when I started, that didn't exist. There really weren't any new cigars. In fact, there was such a shortage, we were happy to get any Robustos and Pyramides. So the game's changed dramatically.
On the other end of the spectrum, though, there's more and more people looking for old, aged, and vintage cigars, which is a particular specialist subject of yours as well. The rare and aged Cuban cigars with vintage auctions. You mentioned earlier that you just finished one yesterday. That's a very special segment of the industry as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the experiences you've made in that field, and what were probably some of the most surprising finds or encounters that you've made along the way?
Okay, well, obviously it's a very different market to the general market. It's very specialist. It's very international. I started selling vintage cigars or buying and selling in 1998. I've had fascinating moments, so many of them. Just in general terms, I've built multi-million-pound collections for clients, literally from scratch, very wealthy clients who are into cigars, and then they want to go the next step because they have a lot of funds to enjoy themselves with, the same as somebody that's very wealthy will buy, I don't know, loads of Lamborghinis or whatever, or a huge collection of Macallan. They want a huge collection of cigars. So I've taken a lot of clients over the years through the journey of prudently, financially, sensibly acquiring a collection over time, explaining you can't do it in one day, but I'll build it comprehensively over a period of 6 months to a year, 2 years. So that's been really very gratifying because they've enjoyed, a lot of them have enjoyed smoking the cigars or looking at the cigars or gifting the cigars, and many of them have enjoyed them to that stage until they have had enough of them and asked me to sell the whole collection again. So that's been a lot of fun. And the other thing is, you mentioned auctions. I went to, I think, my first Christie's auction in 1999, And I remember feeling very nervous when I made my first purchase of a box of Romeo Churchills for probably £150 or something, thinking, oh my God, have I made a mistake here? It's a vintage cigar. I know, you know, mature cigars should be better than fresh cigars, but what do I really know? And of course, I doubled my money pretty quickly. And it's funny that I can think back to 1998 and then race forward to 2009 when we took over Christie's cigar business as such, and became the only cigar auctioneer in the world. And you know, we've just completed, I think, our 40th auction since '09, and it's a lot of fun dealing with a lot of pedestrian type of cigars at auction, a lot of singles, a lot of small packs, part boxes, but also some of the rarest of the rare cigars, as we mentioned before. Just in this auction that has gone by last night, we sold a magnificent box of 20 Davidoff 80th Anniversario with one cigar tube signed by Zino Davidoff, and Perfect Providence back to the dinnerware. My friend who was the seller of the box actually got the signature. You know, we sold a cabinet of 50 Dunhill Selection 205s for an extraordinary amount pre-embargo. These are unicorns, they're white whales, they're one in a million. You might find it once, twice in a lifetime. And I've dealt with everything you can think of, whether it's Cuba Tobacco 1492, Havanas 94s, Cohiba 30th, 35th, 40th, 50th anniversary humidors. There's probably not a vintage cigar you could name that I haven't come across and either bought or sold or both over my career in vintage Havana cigars. And it's been a very interesting subject for me because it's different to selling Monte Cristo 4s every day. So it keeps me very mentally stimulated, and you never stop learning. And I try to acquire as many books going back a century for referencing, because it's very difficult to reference pre-embargo cigars, even 1960 cigars, very difficult. So I'm one of the few people who can reference not everything, but a very, very high proportion. I'm also very lucky if I need a second opinion, I always run round to Edward Sahakian and ask him, do you know, can you authenticate, can you help? Because sometimes you can look and look and it's still not quite certain if it is what you think it is. I used to do this with Simon Chase, who was, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest man in the cigar business since Zino and Dunhill. But unfortunately, he passed away, so that's not possible. But he was literally an encyclopedia of cigars. So, I'm trying, if you like, to increase my knowledge and expertise as the years go on, so I can in some small way be that encyclopedia, be another Edward Sahakian, be another Simon Chase within the cigar industry. It's a big ask. It's a big education process, and it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult because there is not one book that you can sit and study on cigars through the years. Certainly Min Romney's encyclopedia is an invaluable help, but that's post-revolutionary Havana cigars, and it's not everything because it's impossible to be everything, but it's very comprehensive. So that's a few of my thoughts on vintage cigars.
Funnily enough, I've experienced very similar evolutions in the spirits world firsthand. And what I've realized, though, is that a lot of people were challenging or asking themselves whether these products would actually be enjoyed by certain people, much rather than just becoming, something you try to make some money off or just have sitting somewhere in your humidor. Do you believe that's probably, not paying all the respect to particular products as they should, because ultimately it's about enjoying those fine products, getting together with the right people, opening up an old bottle of single malt scotch and lighting up a fabulous cigar?
I think I'm sure you understand that smoking a vintage Havana, and let's talk about vintage being 1980s, say mid 80s and backwards, even though we actually consider 1998 to be vintage, but let's talk about 80s backwards. Let's go back to, say, even the 1930s to 1980s. It's an acquired taste. Let's say it's a perfect cigar. It's an acquired taste. It's, even if it's been stored perfectly, perfect conditions, temperature, humidity, everything, sealed box, unsealed, I don't care, it is still an acquired taste. It will suit some, it will not suit all. And I'll give you, for me, the best example. My father loves Montecristo number 2. If I give him a Montecristo number 2 from the 1970s or 80s, that I know to my educated palate is the most perfect expression of that vintage Montecristo number 2, he will take about 5 puffs on it and he will say, "It's not for me, son." He gives it back to me. He says, "You smoke that. I want something that's a year old. That's it." So, and he has a good palate. He's got an excellent palate for wine, for scotch, for food, for cigars. It's just not for him. And then there's the other factor. Not all cigars that are aged are good aged cigars, because an aged cigar from a bad vintage is just an old cigar that's from a bad vintage. It didn't smoke well then, and it won't smoke well now. You can't age a bad vintage, as far as I'm concerned. Certainly some vintages get better with time, but some will go nowhere. And we know that. We've done a million tests on this stuff over the years. And then there's the whole condition thing. You know, different countries have different practices, temperature, humidity, and that's fine. Anyone can do what they want. You know, I know in Switzerland, for me, they're all too soft and damp and soggy, and they don't stay lit. That's how they like them, nice and soft. The Americans like a softer feeling cigar. You know, I'm a very traditional English cigar merchant. I like to smoke my cigars a bit drier. When it comes to aging a cigar, they should be stored a lot drier and in much colder conditions, because you're retarding the maturation process. It's slowing it all down. You don't want to speed it up, because by the time you come to smoking it, there's nothing left in the blend. You're smoking something, but the flavor's gone completely. If you slow it down, if it's a rich blend to start with, a Partagas, a Bolivar, for example, a Ramon, a Punch, a Sancho, there was a lot in that blend originally in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Now, if you slow down the maturation process by keeping it colder and drier, and then you bring it back slowly to normal humidor smoking conditions, 68, round about that range, up or down a percent or a degree, it booms back into life. You get all the aromas, you get all the flavors, and you should experience all the flavor development. So that's my overall answer.
I had a funny encounter whilst I was working at the American bar at the Savoy in London, when we served 1930s white ladies with gin from back in those days, when we served an original Sazerac cocktail with Fourcheviste cognac from the late 19th century and the original Peugeot bitters. And I can fully relate to what you mean by an acquired taste. That's probably not to everybody's liking. And I think that's an excellent point that you bring up. Great question from Ian in the chat box right now. Which non-Cuban cigars do you think would age well? And maybe I can add another layer to the question as to what are particular characteristics in a cigar that you're looking for in order to consider them age-worthy, or that they will benefit from a prolonged period of resting and maturation?
It's actually a very was two questions, and one is very complex, because our normal answer would be heavier blends age better than lighter blends. I think it's probably overall a fact, but it's not really a science. That's the problem. I've smoked El Rey del Mundos that have been tremendously old, light wrappers. El Rey is a light blended cigar, and they've been outrageously good cigars to smoke even after 30, 40 years. So you can't really completely generalize. What I'm looking for as characteristics for aging a cigar is a heavyweight blend and also a nice dark oily wrapper. They seem to age better than lighter wrappers, but it's not a given. In answer to the question about New World cigars, which ones age, I have to answer you, I honestly do not know, because I don't have the expertise. However, we've got, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest experts in the world on the bottom right of the screen, my friend Jose Blanco, and he would be able to tell you with authority, whereas I simply couldn't, because perhaps I can't pick up the nuances of improvement in flavors in a aged Fuente, for example. I just don't have the experience. Jose will, though. You should ask him.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank to be on the show. I was on a long conference call, and I tried to really finish it off because I've known Mitchell for many years. I think he's one of the people that I respect the most in the industry. He's fair. He's very open-minded. I think in the last 8 or 10 years, his mind has changed a little bit more. We used to have years and years ago these, not arguments, but these back and forth about Cubans and this. And I think not only is Mitchell very knowledgeable, maybe in Cuban cigars, one of the most knowledgeable people in the world, but he's fair, he's very open-minded, and he gives a true opinion about a non-Cuban cigar. And everybody who's seen me at shows, I don't get into the argument, this is better than other, because I've always said no cigar is better than another. It's just totally different. But going to your point, Mitchell, I'm kind of old school on that, and I agree with you that you can never judge, even by the color of the wrapper, how a cigar is going to age. Because I've had really dark, good wrappers, a good Havana, a good Connecticut broadleaf, put it away 5, 6, 7 years, and when I smoke it, it was a totally disappointment. Now, one thing I can confirm with you is this. Why would anybody put with a Connecticut or a light wrapper a cigar that's already mild and put it away for 10 or 12 years? In my personal opinion, I think anything that's a mild cigar should be smoked at least if it's a great cigar, should be maybe 5, 6, 7 years, because after that, it's gonna lose so much. I'm a big believer of aging a good, solid medium to full, and of course, full flavor, full body cigars. But I think, because if you look at, with all honesty, if you look at the industry before, Cuba, when you would say strong cigars, because you got to remember, everything was made in the States was mild, was bland. So you would take a Bolivar, and at that time you take a Bolivar Belicoso Fino, full flavor, full body at its best. But even though I consider still the Bolivar, even though with some of the problems they have, still, in my opinion, is the most full flavor, full body cigars that the Cubans produce. If you look at what Nicaragua's producing, Dominican's producing, Honduras producing, on a scale of 1 to 10, Cuba's 3, 4, 5. And we're talking on strength-wise, some of these cigars are 8, 9, 10, 10. So that's my 2 cents on that. And to be honest, Mitchell, I'm sorry I'm late. I wish I could have heard everything in the beginning, but I will tomorrow morning hear the whole interview, because every time I talk with you, I learn something with you. Much respect for you, my good friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jose, it's such a pleasure to have you with us, and many thanks for taking the time and joining us tonight. Hope everything is well on your end.
Yes, everything is good. Just, duty calls and all that. And like I said, I wish one day, to be honest, and Reinhard, you know how much I like you, that we could all, one day, when democracy is returned to Cuba and the greatness of Cuba comes back, that we all be in San Juan y Martinez or Pinal del Rio, or whatever it is, sit down, bring some tobacco from Nicaragua, bring some tobacco from Dominican, take a good visa from Cuba, make that blend, and I can guarantee you that you're probably going to see the best cigars ever made in the world when you combine those 3 countries together. I've done it, and some people have smoked it, and it's amazing. But more than anything else, what we need is Cuba to be free and people to have a life again. And I'm not going to get too much into politics, because this is all about cigars.
I couldn't agree with you more. Not that it's all about cigars, but about Cuba and about the blending. That would be a dream. I would love to do that. I've already got it in my mind how I blend a cigar.
You know, it's funny. I'm going to make a little story. In one of my trips to Cuba, one of the first ones, I sat down with Robaina. And Robaina would always bring him his medicine, his vitamins, a bottle of Chivas. He loves Chivas 12. He could have gotten anything he wanted, but he liked. So we're there and we're sitting down, and he says, "Would you like to bring back some wrapper?" I said, "Don Alejandro, but of course." So he sends Hiroshi was a kid at that time. So Hiroshi comes back with just the back when the old man said, no, not there. I want you to go to the right corner of this part of the farm and bring it back. So it was about 500 leaves of wrapper. So when I was going to leave Cuba, and you, Mitchell, I know you knew Basulta very well. They told me, Robaina told me, look, you need a permission. So Basulta at Havanas, they gave me the permission. So when I'm leaving Cuba, this captain stops me, says, "You can't take that tobacco." And I said, "Yes, I can." And the captain says, "No, you can't take that tobacco." And I says, "Yes, I can." And the guy got a little bit like, he says, "What do you mean you can take?" And then I gave him the letter by Basulta, and I said, and it was wrong for my part. And I said, "I guess you can read." And he looked like me, claro. He said, "Yes, of course I can read." So I said, "Read that." When he saw the letter from Basulta, this Jose Blanco, you know, citizen passport number, blah, 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 is authorized to take this tobacco out of the. He says, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I believe he carried my bag to the airplane, the whole thing." But the story's not there. So I bring back the wrapper to Dominican, and then I'm seeing my good friend Trey that year in Canada. And you know, in Canada they do a lot of rolling events. So he had about like 7 or 8 pounds of Viso, had about 3 pounds of Seco, and he had, I'd say, a couple of pounds of Liero. I brought all that tobacco back. So at La Aurora, we had Nicaragua, we had Corojo, and I made a blend. And I'm in Vegas at the Big Smoke, and all of a sudden, James Suckling pops in. And he said, "Do you have anything to smoke?" I said, "I want you to try this," because I had blended the 3 tobaccos together. And James, I mean, you know James, he's palate. And he starts to smoke, and he says, "This has Cuban in it." And I says, "Yes, but it's not all Cuban. I'm picking up a couple of things." Then I told him what it was. He liked it so much. If you go to the blog, I said, "Please do not mention me." He wrote on one of his blogs about that somebody had given him tobaccos, you know, from Nicaragua, from Cuba, and Dominican, that he was so impressed. So I'm a firm believer that I think yet, and I hope I could live, and we all have, you know, good health to see it. I still think that the industry as a whole still has a lot to offer. I don't know what your opinion on that is, Mitchell.
I agree. And it's funny you mentioned Robaina. I didn't know that you'd met him. You know, up until I think the year before he passed away, every time I go to Havana, I'd always go and see him and have a coffee with him. And he was just such a lovely man. He really was. I don't think he was treated very well over there, to be honest.
No, he wasn't.
Not wanting to get political, but luckily he had a lot of good friends out of the country who did treat him very well.
You know, it's funny. I used to have in my office, and I still have it. I have it in my other apartment. I used to have a huge photo of me and Robaina sitting on this rocking chair, which probably you have a ton of photos like that. So I'm smoking a Robaina, and he's smoking a 100 años. And Dave Savona, which used to go to visit us a lot, sees the photo, and he says, like, "Oh, this would be a great photo." And I said, "David, just forgetting one thing. I'm an American citizen, and I don't want that photo to be me and Robaina smoking a cigar in Cuba. Somebody at the State Department could say, 'What is Jose Blanco doing there?'" And but they wanted to publish it, and I think it's something that I will cherish, because I have to be honest. The first time I went to Cuba, my father wanted, because when he was politically exiled, he lived in Cuba for a while. When I landed there, it was like, you know, being in DR, being in Puerto Rico. And the person that I wanted really to meet was Robaina, because we have to be honest. He was the last living legend that they had there. So to me, that when it comes to tobacco, he was the man on my bucket list. And it's very hard to find a man so humble, so nice, so sweet, so passionate about him.
Absolutely right.
Thank you for sharing that, Jose. Mr. Orchant, one thing I would love to talk to you about is the recent announcement of the partnership between La Casa del Tabaco Group and Cigars Ltd, forming the new Dominique London business entity. What is the short, mid, and long-term vision for the newly found entity?
Gosh, that's a very good question. Well, the vision what is to create a massive cigar and whiskey business that is international, which is exactly what we will do over the next few years. So I'm not sure. It's not really. There isn't a short or a medium vision. That is the long-term vision. We are creating a cigar and whiskey retail and e-tail empire. It's as simple as that. We've got a group of people who all have incredible skill sets within their departments in our group, and together we are very, very strong, and we're stronger together than as two separate growing businesses. We both had very successful growing businesses, and as we've combined, we've only done the merger I think 3 months ago, but the first indications are it was a very, very wise move, and it's very successful because the synergies between the two companies are tremendous. A lot of shared knowledge and shared departments, and we have skill sets in some departments, they have skill sets in other departments, and I love working with Dominique. It's a shame because of COVID, I'm sort of grounded, I can't travel, otherwise Dominique and I would be literally going around the world seeing our clients and giving talks and sampling sessions in our stores and lounges, but that's unfortunately all temporarily interrupted. Yeah, that is the vision. We're very happy, we're very excited about the merger. I can't think of anything similar that's been done in the cigar industry in my lifetime, so it's nice to do something a little bit different, and I'm really very proud to be a part of this much, much bigger business than my own business, which was already a very big business. So it's also nice not to be the only guy at the top making every final decision, because as the MD of C.Gars Ltd since day one, up till the merger, when we probably had about 100 staff at that time, we've got more now, the buck would stop here for every decision, basically, every major final decision. Well, it's nice to be part of a group and be able to brainstorm, and still probably most of the major decisions may come down to me as CCO of the company, but it's nice to be able to actually have Dominique and Frederick and our other partners, my partner Ron, to help in that final decision-making process, because you have to understand, my background was when I started the business, I started with nothing. I started with a £10,000 loan from my father, and that was it. So, I've developed the business very slowly, carefully, prudently, step by painful step for 25 years, till it became a company with a turnover of about £24 million last year. And nobody can really train you. There's no book you can read. How do you run a business turning over £24 million and making a lot of profits and employing 100 people? There's no textbook that tells you how to do it. So the closest thing you can do to going from, say, 24 million to 50 million is exactly what I've done, which is a merger with a similar sized company with people that I like, admire and trust, and that we can learn from each other, we can learn together, we can make decisions together, and we can go forward in strength. And that's really the whole thinking, if you like, behind the merger.
As challenging as that might be every now and then, though, I assume. So with everything that you've
experienced... We'll find out if it's challenging. Interview me in a year. So far, it's just been a good laugh, actually, and it's been very successful.
Would you say that ultimately, though, this is also the peak for you, where it's also the perfect resemblance of the essence of the cigar industry on a larger level, where it's all about togetherness. It's all about the community and camaraderie, that you then form larger entities, find people to partner up with, even though I believe, a lot of people in the industry are alpha people as well, alpha males or females, but ultimately us all coming together and coming closer is sort of the peak of the cigar world, isn't it?
Quite possibly. It's certainly not the peak of my career, because I feel like I'm just getting started now. I'm very young, obviously, and I've got a lot of years ahead of me. So it's not the peak of my career, that's for sure. Is it my peak in the industry? No, it's probably the best thing I've ever done in the industry. I think it's going to be very interesting for people who are, if you like, friends and fans of Cigars or La Casa del Tobacco, to see the moves that Dominique and I are going to be making over the coming months and years, because there's some very interesting expansion plans going through now in all different aspects of our business, from products we're developing, locations we'll be opening premises in, websites that we'll be opening, businesses that we are acquiring. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. In fact, I think the peak of my career will come when I write a book about the development of my business. But that's got a few years to run still before I add the last few chapters to that. That'll
Well,
be
I'm certainly most looking forward to reading that book one day. Now, since we're already looking ahead and looking into the crystal ball here, towards the end of our wonderful conversation, I'm really curious as to what would be the things that you wish for, that you would love to see in the cigar industry on a larger level, for the better of all of us consumers, all of us cigar lovers, and the industry as a whole.
Less regulation, less legislation, more understanding by whoever the regulators and legislators are, that cigars are not cigarettes. They are a completely and utterly different product for a multitude of reasons, which I'm sure everybody out there knows. And I think, that's really the main thing. I hope the wheel turns the other way. I think we've hit the peak of, or the trough rather, of the horrendous legislation in Europe. Personally, I'm glad we're out of Europe, only because I can't stand the laws that are passed over to the UK. Thank goodness our governments have actually been quite sensible in their interpretations through regulations, not to make it so draconian. So my biggest hope for the industry is that legislation basically just buggers off, leaves us alone, and lets our community get on with enjoying a habit that is probably one of the safest, bad habits out there. Cigarettes, as far as I'm concerned, anyone can do what they want. I'm not a fan of cigarettes, and I would never tell anybody to smoke a cigarette for obvious health reasons. Cigars, in moderation, they're just going to relax you. Drugs may make your mind go crazy and you'll kill yourself, or you might kill somebody else. If you drink alcohol to excess, you might go home and beat up your wife or your kid or something, or somebody else, or walk in the road and get run over. But you know what? I overdose on cigars every day. I smoke 4, 5, 6 cigars a day, like my friend Jose. You know what? We're just chilled out people. It doesn't do us any harm, doesn't do anybody else any harm. I don't smoke around people that don't like cigar smoking. I'm a considerate smoker, I think. So, yeah, maybe a bit of common sense will prevail, and this whole nanny state mentality, maybe we'll move away from that over the next few years. So that's my biggest hope. And that will obviously allow consumers to enjoy their hobby, retailers to make a living, to employ people, to pay taxes, all those sensible things that normal people can understand. Unfortunately, there's a lot of politicians, particularly in the European Parliament, who have never probably done an honest day's work in their life. And if they had any honesty and integrity, they'd resign as an MEP, because I think it's the most corrupt position, it's the most corrupt organisation and job in this world. Well, probably in Europe, maybe not the world. So yeah, that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts for business and consumers in this industry.
And on a more-
Reinhard, would you allow me to ask one last question to Mitchell?
Absolutely.
Mitchell, this is a tough one, and you might want to think it over. I've known during your career, you have met a ton of celebrities, a lot of people in the cigar industry, a lot of people that you know that are great smokers. Now, you have to look at it this way. But remember, it cannot only be a person that smokes Cuban. Who has been the person that you've met or you think that has one of the most sophisticated palates in the world?
Oh, bloody hell. That is a good question. That's a really good question. Well, actually, there's a very easy answer. It's Dr. Nip, Minron Ni. I spent some time with him in his home, and he's a fascinating man, and he has the most incredible olfactory senses. He's able to pick out flavors in cigars and describe them in a way that you wouldn't have thought of. He has a breadth and a depth of knowledge of cigars that is probably unparalleled in my generation, in my time in the business. So I would definitely say it would be the doctor. Yeah. Crazy though he is, crazy good fun. Bit of a character, but yeah, it would be him. How about you, Jose? Who would you say?
I mean, I would have to remember one thing is you being in an industry, because, you know, you have people like Carlito, like Jorge, like Pepin. These guys have palates amazing. In my opinion, George Brightman by far.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Good point. I love George. He's a hell of a personality and got a tremendous knowledge on cigars. My God.
No. Let me tell you something. There's a great story and we've had on the show. When he was starting off in Cigar Aficionado, Gordon Mock gave him 10 cigars unbanded. And Gordon says he only got 9, and George says it was 10. Because the problem was at that time, that was the word, that Punch and Hoyo de Monterrey, made by Villazon in Honduras, was the same cigar. So that's where the confusion. But till this day, Gordon says, yeah, he got the 10. But for you to get given 10 cigars unbanned and to pick the 10, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's
and one thing, and let me tell you something, when it comes to overall cigars from everybody, I mean, I do my blending seminar with 5 different wrappers that only 3 people in the world have been able to get it. George got the 5 wrappers. That's when you know, when you smoke blind, that you're able to smoke an inch on a cigar of wrapper and get the 5. That tells you the hell of a palate that person has. Not a lot of people can do it.
No, that's very impressive. And I certainly can't outdo that. But my claim to fame is a blind tasting that Hunters and Francow did many, many years ago at, oh my gosh, in Floridita restaurant in central London. And we blind tasted 3 Dalias and I nailed all 3 of them. I was the only person who did Cuban Dalias. So there you go.
That's not easy. And you know, Mitchell, you know it better than I. It takes time to develop a palate, and it takes time to smoke everything. Everybody knows that I smoke everything from A to Z, because I don't want somebody to tell me this cigar is great. If I can't mooch it or buy it, I'll find a way to get the cigar, because I want to know when somebody who has a very high opinion says this cigar is phenomenal, I want to smoke. And to be honest, I would say 8 out of 10 times, because I know how their palates are. But you know it, I know it, Reinhardt knows, everybody's on the panel. How many cigars have we seen? Cigar of the year, doesn't matter if it's Cigar Aficionado, Cigar Journal, the bloggers, and you smoke, you go like, really? Was it the cigar of the year? And how many times do you see a rating of an 86 and 87, and you said, this is a 90+ cigar? So it comes down to taste is subjective, but at the same time, you will never develop your palate if you only smoke Cubans or Nicaraguans or Dominicans or Honduras. You have to smoke everything, because every country has different profiles, have different characteristics. So that's my 2 cents, but you're the expert.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But you could say the same about whiskies, you know, or wines. I think to appreciate the subject properly, you need to taste all different ones and work out over time, and it does take time, what is it that suits your palate. Some people, unfortunately, don't have a palate, so they'll never quite get it. If you do, it's a time and patience thing, isn't it?
And Jose, ultimately, it's a pleasure to have you joining us and nailing our guests on the show here as well, giving you a slight break from the regular Sunday nailing the professor.
No, but let me tell you something. I will, tomorrow morning, I will start the beginning because I cannot miss, with all honesty. If I miss some shows, yes, I'm not going to lie about it. It all depends who it is. But with Mitchell Orchant, which I've known now, I think maybe 15, 16 years, I wish I would have known them when I used to travel in the late 90s, early 2000 to London, because he has always been so nice to me, always gives me a couple of cigars. And not only because of cigar, but he has a conversation. When you're talking with Mitchell, you're talking with an institution, a person that can talk tobacco, that's been around. You know, Reinhard, because you and I talk, and we get along so good because you're passionate. You want to learn. You had a great time at the show. I wanted you to go to the show. I want you to go to DR. There's so much because Mitchell is, I mean, I'm older than Mitchell, but we're getting old. We need the new young blood, the people that have the passion and the will to learn. And you're a person that are not afraid to call me and other people and ask a question. And with pleasure, I will give you my opinion, which probably most of the time is wrong, but still, you call me to ask the question. But I encourage people to be like you. You are the future. You're honest and you're dedicated to your job. I don't know what Mitchell really thinks about you, but maybe he likes you.
Well, now we're really joined by a rock star because Jeremiah's here. Hello, Jeremiah.
Listen, Mitch, we just got off recording the Meet the Professor show on Sunday, and I was going on Facebook. I saw you were live. Let me tell you something. There's no way in hell that I couldn't try to figure out a way to log on to the Zoom. I was calling everybody up, calling Jose, but he was too busy listening to himself and talking to you. And I was phoning up Reinhard, and I was phoning up everybody saying, send me this link. I got to go and pay my respects to the one and only Mr. Orchant. Well, there we go, my brother. You are the best. You are my family in the UK. You are the Fuente family in the UK. You are the man, and I love you very much.
L'chaim, thank you very much.
It's funny, Jeremiah was saying the same thing. I didn't want to mention that, it was you, me, and Carlito pre-recording. Then after that, I wanted, because I've always liked Mitchell so much, and I mean, we try to support Reinhard as much as possible. But the good thing I like about Mitchell is his honesty. A lot of people have said, I can't believe Mitchell Orchant said this about the Cubans, and I said this. There's things that cannot lie. It's the reality, and I don't want to get into who's better or that. But I think that honesty and the way you've handled yourself during all these years, I think that's what makes Mitchell Orchant an institution. That's what you told me to say, right?
Yeah, I'll pay you later. But actually, I'll tell you seriously where that comes from. I come from the consumer's angle because I was a cigar buyer. I was the customer before I was in the business. And when I came into the business, I wanted to look at the business from the customer's perspective, because that way you can actually give the customer what the customer deserves and should expect. So that flows through all the way through my years in business, is to be honest. Maybe I'm too brutally honest, and that gets me a few enemies in the trade, because I'm a bit outspoken. I usually get told off by one importer or another for saying something. But I think it's better to be honest. If I think a cigar is crap, I'm actually going to say it's crap and tell the importer or distributor it's crap, rather than everyone blows smoke, up them and they think it's the best thing, and they're actually educating the consumer that a rubbish cigar is a good cigar. I'm not the guy that's going to do that, and I don't make a lot of friends in the industry by speaking my mind. I won't tell you a few of the cigars that I don't like. A lot of people know. Paul knows quite a few of them, and I upset people by telling that. But I won't promote a cigar that I don't rate to my customers. And I've got, I don't know, at the last count, about 140,000 clients on my database. So, you know, you talk about influencers in the cigar industry, certainly in the UK, I'm quite an influencer. So I tell it how it is.
No, that's the truth.
That's it.
What a wonderful session. I'm truly grateful and honored to have such an iconic panel and so many wonderful people from the industry joining us. Mr. Orchant, many more send their regards and their love through the Facebook live stream, like Roy Sommer, who just logged on as well. And it's been one hell of a conversation and one hell of a Light 'em Up lounge. So many, many thanks for everything that you shared with us. All the very best for your continued journey and the path forward with all the new endeavors. And thank you so much again for everything that you shared with us tonight.
Well, thank you very much. It was very kind of you to invite me. And I've enjoyed it. I hope I haven't bored everybody to tears. And Jose, it's always lovely to hear from you. Jeremiah, nice to see you. I've never seen so much of you in the last few months. Unbelievable. And I hope to see everybody again soon. And if anyone's coming to London, drop me an email, because I'm always happy to meet and have a smoke with friends.
Definitely, definitely. I think maybe not this year, but definitely it's on my to-do list next year.
What do you mean not this year, Jose? I think we got to get to London immediately.
I don't have a problem. I'll hop on a plane to go to the first thing I know that I'm probably going to get more cigars from Mitchell than what you send me, because you know, I don't want to even get into that.
Jose, Mitchell's Jewish like me. You're not getting shit from Mitchell.
He always takes care of me. Don't worry. I don't have a problem with that.
You're not getting any Fuente from me. He's cutting down my allocations.
No, listen. We might have a good surprise for you very soon, right, Jeremiah?
I'm not making any announcements in public, Jose.
No, but I didn't say to say what it is, but we might have a surprise for him.
Yeah, Mitch always gets surprises from us.
It's my birthday in September.
Hopefully this time it'll be a good surprise.
Great. You're firing me as distributor. But Jeremiah, it's my birthday in September, so I like surprises. I'm just putting it out there.
All right, we'll make sure that this surprise comes to you in September then.
Fantastic.
Good night, Mitchell. Always great to see you. Jeremiah, we'll talk. Reinhardt,
amazing.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Mitch. That was awesome.
Cheers, everybody. Good night.
Nice
Good
to
night.
see you.
Lovely seeing you all. Many thanks, and light them up. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, Petra.